And so this is a tutorial to implement a search state into the finite state machine. First off, we're going to be using the week 5 solution files. Firstly, we're going to open up the enemy character blueprint. Now we're going to make it so that the AI can hear sound coming from the player. First off, we go to AI perception on the left, and then we go to AI perception on the right, and we add a new array element to sensors config. Next, we choose the AI hearing config. Now we're going to go into AI hearing config, sense, and then detection by affiliation. We're going to tick all 3 of those boxes, and then we're going to change max age to 4. This determines how long the stimuli exists for until it is forgotten by the AI. Now we're going to compile this blueprint, save it, and then open the player character blueprint. Much like before, we're going to go into the left side and then AI perception stimuli source, and then we're going to go to AI perception, and we're going to go to register as source. We're going to add one more array element, and that's going to be AI sense underscore hearing. We're going to compile this blueprint, and then we're going to head down to the fire function, and we're going to add in a report noise event. This function informs the AI that there has been noise at a certain location on the level. We're going to be dragging in the execute link from fire into report noise event, as this takes place after firing the gun. For an instigator, we're going to be using the gun mesh, as that's the weapon used to fire the shot. As for noise location, we're going to be using a get world location node for the gun mesh, as we want the noise stimuli to spawn where the player fires the gun. After attaching all of the nodes to the report noise event function, we're going to compile the blueprint and save it. Next, we're going to be heading back into the main window and opening the C++ class of enemy character. First off, we're going to head into the header file to declare a few variables and functions. The first thing we're going to do is head to the agent state enum and add in the search state, which we'll be using later on. Next, we're going to be adding in a new U function called agent search with the return type of void. This function is going to be the crux of how the enemy is going to locate the player after they hear the gunshot. After that, we're going to be adding in a new Boolean variable known as bCanHearActor. This Boolean is going to be used to determine if the enemy can currently hear the player anywhere on the level. Now we're going to be heading back to the C++ file, but remember to save the header file first. First off, we're going to head to the constructor, and we're going to set bCanHearActor equals false, as we don't want the enemy to be able to hear the player upon starting the game. After that, we're going to head down and we're going to add in an empty implementation of the agent search function. We're going to be implementing that later on. Next, head to the sensePlayer function. We're going to be changing this function so that the enemy can now either sense the actor, which is the player, through sight or hearing. To do that, we're going to be adding 2 if loops to compare the name of the stimulus to the type of sense. The first type of sense is default underscore AI sense underscore sight, which is if the enemy can see the player. The second type is default underscore AI sense underscore hearing, which is if the enemy can hear the player. We're going to just copy down the first loop and then add it on to the second line and just change the name of the string as well as the Boolean variable. A reminder is that there is 2 underscores between default and AI sense. We're going to head into the else loop and we're going to set bCanHearActor equals false, so that whenever there is no stimulus detected by the enemy, then it is thought that they can't hear or see the actor. As you can see, we added an extra line which will be used to debug. The name of the stimulus will show up in the output log. Now we're going to go compile this code and then we're going to play and we're going to check out what it says in the output log. As you can see, depending on if we shoot the gun or if the enemy sees us, the different name of the type of stimulus will be shown in the output log. If you press the apostrophe key and the number 4 on your numpad, you can also see yellow globes that appear whenever you fire your gun. These globes will also disappear after 4 seconds, as that's what we set it as before. Now, going back to the C++ file, we're going to implement the agent search function. To make things easier, we're going to go up to agent engage and copy what's in there and put it down there, as it's very similar. But instead of B can see actor, we're going to be using B can hear actor, as sound is the major cue for this function. Next, we're going to go back to this very large if-else-if loop, and we're going to be adding in a new else-if statement to check if the current agent state is equal to search. To do that, we're going to copy one of the loops above and change the agent state to search. Make sure in the inner loops, the if statements all point to either patrol, engage, or evade states. If not, then add one in. Next, we're going to be changing the function of that particular else-if loop to agent search. Now for the other else-if loops, be sure to add in an inner else-if loop that points towards the search state. For the criteria of that else-if statement, we're going to make sure that B can hear actor is true and the remaining health of the enemy is greater than 0.4. After compiling the code and testing the game, you might actually notice that the enemy will shoot at the player once they fire a shot, even though the enemy can't see them. That's because of an error in the agent search function. Heading back into the C++ file and down to the agent search function, you might notice in the code that the enemy will fire at the player when they can hear them. We don't want that to happen, so we're going to add in an additional if statement to make sure that the enemy will only fire at the player when they can see them as well as hear them. We're going to head back into Unreal and compile the code. As you can see and hear, the enemy will no longer fire at us if it can't see us, but it's still unable to come to us, and judging by the red text in the output log, an error has occurred and the enemy can't move. We're going to go back into the code and we're going to head to the else-if loops that will set the current agent state to search. We're going to add one extra criteria. This is going to make sure that the current agent state will only be set to search when the enemy can hear the player but can't see the player, and that their remaining health is greater than or equal to 0.4. Next, we're also going to change the if statement that sets current agent state to patrol and change its criteria to the enemy can't see the player and the enemy can't hear the player. This will make sure that the enemy will go on patrol if they don't sense the player at all. After doing all of that, we're going to hit compile one more time and then playtest the game. As we can see here, the AI will head towards this location of the gunshot, and right here there is a node on the other side of the wall, and the enemy will head towards that node once they hear a gunshot. The enemy will remain at that node until the gunshot stimulus has expired. And that's it. Thanks for watching.